Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to the 5th Annual Kansas Hemp Conference. My name is Sarah Stevens with the Kansas Hemp Consortium, and I am so excited about the lineup of speakers we have ready to share today. And I so appreciate everyone who helped pull this event together. Frank and I are with the Hemp Consortium and glad to be back with updates on the current status of hemp grain and fiber production in Kansas and the Midwest. We're very excited to talk about the future of hemp in the region, as we have seen some monumental shifts in regulatory policy and market development this year. We want to share with you some of that enthusiasm and momentum that we're seeing pick up around the world for hemp grain and fiber. After 7 years of growing and working in hemp myself, I'm more excited than ever. This does not mean that hemp is easy. It certainly is not, and the whole industry is not yet rainbows and unicorns. But we are getting there, and this is thanks to the community of human beings who refuse to give up, and we are starting to pick up pace because of it. Some of those wonderful people are here today, and we're truly honored to share this space with each person who registered and those who watch the recording later. We're pleased to welcome speakers from the Kansas Department of Agriculture and the United States Department of Agriculture to talk about changes to the licensing process that will take place on January 1st. We also have a really solid group of 3 hemp producers lined up to speak about their experience in growing, harvesting, and processing hemp. But to get started, we want to really focus this conversation on market opportunities for grain and fiber. So we're excited to welcome Andrew Bish with the Hemp Feed Coalition. Andrew uses his time and talents to move the hemp industry forward on many levels. He lives in Giltner, Nebraska, and stands at the forefront of agricultural innovation, particularly within the hemp industry. As Chief Operating Officer of Bish Enterprises and founder and CEO of Hemp Harvest Works, Andrew has significantly contributed to agricultural manufacturing and engineering, introducing groundbreaking machinery and services tailored to the hemp sector. And if you've ever tried to harvest hemp, you know just how important that is. Today, Andrew is here with us as president of the Hemp Feed Coalition, a role he volunteers for, and his leadership as president of the Hemp Feed Coalition underscores his commitment to pioneering hemp as a viable commercial feed for animals. This role highlights his dedication to navigating the intersection of agriculture and sustainability. He is pushing hard to make it happen with research, education, and advocacy to establish a future for hemp feed products. Through these visionary efforts, Andrew is transforming American agriculture. He's advocating for a sustainable and innovative future where hemp plays a central role in animal nutrition and overall agricultural prosperity. It's an absolute delight to welcome Andrew as our first speaker here today, and I will hand it over to him to share his screen and slides.
Well, thank you, Sarah. Those were some very kind words. I will get this shared. Okay. I think we're working. Okay, well, thank you, everybody, for being here today. I'm blessed to be a part of what you have going on there in Kansas. As Sarah mentioned, I'm from Nebraska. Let me get rid of this little box. There we go. She mentioned what I do. I run an agricultural equipment company. We engineer and manufacture unique harvesting solutions. I got to thank Kansas for part of the reason that I'm in the hemp industry. Sorghum actually led me into the hemp industry, and we do a lot of work in the Kansas area and the sorghum commodity. As mentioned, I'm the president of the Hemp Feed Coalition, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. A little, as mentioned, I'm from Giltner. My background, I come from a family of farmers. I come from a family of inventors. My grandfather, 95 years old, just had his birthday a couple weeks ago. He founded our company in 1976. My grandfather Lewis passed away earlier this year. He was a farmer his whole life, all the way up to the last couple months of his life. 6,000 acres of mostly corn and soybeans in southeast Nebraska. I'm sure if we've got some farmers on here, and even if we're not a farmer, we're familiar with what Paul Harvey had to say in 1986 with his speech, "So God made a farmer." Um, and to me, farmers matter. That's why I do what I do. Uh, Farming's a tough job, uh, and farmers rarely get much credit for what they do. Although that's one of the things I appreciate about farmers is farmers aren't looking for credit. They're looking to get a job done, and I appreciate those that are on this call that are farmers and those that are supporting farmers. But uh, I got a couple quotes up here just to highlight the challenges of farmers and segue into why I do what I do here. But for most of us, we know that the economy around us is very challenging agriculturally. We've seen a lot of price drops with combine equipment, tractors, farm income in general. It's really tough. Retirement auctions are everywhere. This is actually a snippet from LinkedIn over a 1 week time frame where I grabbed some images of some different retirement auctions, and these are the things that break my heart. And again, when we look at why do I do what I do, to me, hemp is a wonderful rotational crop opportunity, and that's what I'm seeking. That's why I do what I do. I'm looking for rotational crop opportunities for farmers, and I think hemp can be one of those. So what is the Hemp Feed Coalition? Well, what we're doing is we're trying to revolutionize animal nutrition by advocating for hemp feed regulation and innovation. Our vision is pretty simple. We're looking to grow hemp producers and processors access to the billion-dollar animal feed and supplements market. Some of the people that I work with great people. I don't do this all myself for sure. I couldn't get it done. But work with some wonderful people like Wendy Mosier, Justin Swanson, Bill Bookout, Ken Elliott, Raj Kasula. He helped fund our animal feed trials for egg-laying chickens. His company did. Thomas Nellis, Morgan Tweed, of course, myself, and then a couple support staff that we have that I'm very grateful for that helped make this happen. And all of us on here, we do this. We're unpaid people. This is all a volunteer job for us. And for me, I don't raise animals. Again, my passion is rotational crops. So why does the world need, or why does the USA need the Hemp Feed Coalition for that matter? Well, we help bridge the regulatory gap. We can't legally feed hemp to animals today for the most part. I've talked about a couple exceptions here, but that's a real challenge for the marketplace. We want the industry to grow. We want hemp to be a real rotational crop opportunity. We're going to have offtake, and so we're going to have to work with regulators, with the FDA, to make that happen. We're science-based. That's what we do. There's lots of great things that come from hemp. We're focused on the science and proving out that that it's safe. Not only for humans, but it's safe for the animals that are eating it. And not only is it safe, but it's healthy, because that's more important than just being safe. We want to feed an animal an ingredient that actually improves their quality of life. We find innovative solutions. We're always looking for ways that we can use hemp as an animal feed ingredient, and working with universities and post-secondary institutions across the country to do testing on some of those ideas. Always looking for new applications, and we have a lot of industry partnerships. We work very well with most of the groups in the hemp industry. I would say that the mission of the Hemp Feed Coalition is well supported by those in the hemp industry in terms of our position. So let's get into some of the challenges we have and what's going on out there with hemp seed. I got some prices up here of what this commodity looks like. Conventional hemp seed grain right now is going for about 70 cents a pound. And meal that's coming from that is about 27 cents, 28 cents a pound. And we've seen some of the price of hemp seed grain go up. Just a couple of years ago, it was at 55 cents. So we've seen that go up 15 cents. That's positive on the farmer side of things. It's not super positive on the consumer side of things because it's raising the cost of hemp seed meal. And if we look down here between hemp seed meal and soybean meal, you can see where we've got an immediate challenge on a price point, which is definitely a stifling point for the industry, because we're not going to see people switch over from 16 cents a pound for soybean meal to 27 cents a pound for hemp seed meal, just because some of us think it's a good idea. So the economics, we got to figure out how to make that work. Of course, I think that that's a problem that solves itself over time and volume. But those are currently some of the pricings. Hemp seed oil is currently the most used product of the hemp seed. Most processors are producing hemp seed oil, and hemp seed meal is a current byproduct. That's positive. We expect to see hemp seed meal start to dominate the marketplace as more animal feed production increases. The hemp seed breaks down into a lot of different components. Over here, cold pressing, for instance, that's where we're getting the hemp seed meal. Sometimes it's referred to as cake. By definition with the FDA, they don't like the word cake. Meal is what they prefer. And hemp seed oil comes out of that as well. Now, in the dehuling process, where they remove the outside of that seed, yeah, you end up with the hull, and then the interior, the hemp heart. This hemp heart could be further cold pressed. You'd end up with a meal that is minus the hulls, essentially over where in traditional pressing, the hull is a part of the meal. The hemp hulls are something we're working on with some other animals like horses to test and identify what some of the health benefits of that are, because that currently is a byproduct of hemp heart production. Hemp hearts are the #1 consumed hemp product on a consumer level at this point in time. Hemp is nutritious. One of the benefits of hemp is going to be the omega-3, omega-6 fatty acid profile. And it's a good quality protein. It's a complete protein with all the essential amino acids. That's an important aspect of a protein. We're not seeing as much protein as we see from soybeans yet. So again, on a protein gram per gram basis, hemp is coming in a little bit short of the soybean, but quite substantially more protein than what you're going to see from corn. But here's just an example of some of those nutritional aspects of the hemp seed meal. Some of what we see as a result of this being fed to animals is a reduction of stress and reduction of in the joints, reduction of inflammation rather, due to the fatty acid profile. So that's positive. The role of animal feed. Well, hemp seed products are a high quality source of protein, as I mentioned, and there's no cannabinoids produced within hemp grain. However, contamination does occur. That seed is oftentimes in contact with the plant where there's cannabinoids. We do see that transferring over to the seed. If seeds aren't cleaned properly, you can end up showing low levels of cannabinoids in your meal after it's processed. We contend that the low levels pose no safety risk. There's a lot of data that suggests that that's accurate, but it is something to be aware of, that there is a transference factor with cannabinoids onto the seed hull. We expect, so what we're seeing right now is on average between 800 and 1,200 pounds of seed per acre are being produced in the United States. for hemp grain. There's some companies working on some hybrids that are seeing 2,400 pounds, 3,000 pounds an acre. So that's positive. We're going to start to see these yields increase. One of the things when you go back to the meal price, that's a little bit difficult for the hemp industry currently is that not only is the meal price a little bit more expensive than we see on soybeans, nearly double, but also we're not getting the same bushel an acre from hemp as we are soybeans. So those are definitely some general challenges. But again, those are solved. We do expect to see the industrial hemp marketplace grow about 20% per year between now and 2027. And the animal feed market as a whole is expected to grow at about 3.62% from 2023 into from 2017 into 2023, and then continue to grow beyond that. So let's look at the economics. There in 2019, there was approximately 284 million tons of animal feed fed to animals, with beef cattle consuming about 64 million tons, hogs at 61 million tons, and broiler chickens at 61 million tons. Most of that coming from corn, soybean, miller, and just dried distillers grains. So that's currently where the makeup of most of the animal feed is coming from. So we can take a look at how this is affecting Kansas. So if we look at some of these animals in Kansas, we take a look at egg layers, for instance. Kansas produces a lot of chickens, but the reality is hemp seed meal offtake in Kansas would require about 839 acres. That's not a lot, but it's more than zero. Nationally, that number looks like closer to 500,000. But if we get into beef cattle, that's where it gets a little bit more exciting. So let's take a look at beef cattle in the United States. 28.2 million pounds of feed. And if we're able to impact just 5% of those beef cattle at a 20% inclusion rate, that needs that's a 3.5 million acre requirement when you look at beef cattle. What's that look like for Kansas? Well, if we were to say that we impacted that same 5% of cattle in Kansas at a 20% inclusion rate, that would mean we need 157,000 acres grown in the state of Kansas. That's a real rotational crop opportunity right there, 157,000 acres. So where are we at with getting some of this stuff done? Here's some of the states that have laws either pending or on the books that allow animal feed to hemp to be sold as an animal feed in some form or another. Some of these states are pets, some of them are non-consumption animals, most of them are non-consumption animals. The challenge here is commodity can't cross over state lines. These are all the different policies that are out there from a state-by-state basis. On a federal level, we now have one animal legally able to eat hemp seed meal as a feed ingredient, that is egg-laying chickens. We worked for the past 4.5 years to get that approved, and this August we finally gained federal approval. We got a recommendation early in the year from the FDA, and AFCO finally approved that in their vote in August 2024. So that's really exciting. That proves out that this is possible to get done. Not only is it possible to get done, now we've got a roadmap on how to approve more animals. We've got some expectations that we understand very clearly from the FDA, and we know how to make this happen. So a lot of good news out there on the poultry front relative to the work that we're doing here at the Hemp Feed Coalition. So what's next? What we're trying to accomplish is submission of a beef cattle application in early January. of this next year. Like I mentioned, that's a substantial opportunity for the state of Kansas. We have a lot of data that actually came out of Kansas. USDA worked with K-State to do some cannabinoid transference studies that are really helpful to this application. So we appreciate Kansas for all their work they're doing. And then we have a lamb study that was conducted at Colorado State University. And we expect to have those results here early next year, and we'll be working on an application for lambs as well. Further down the road, you can expect to see some work on horses and broiler chickens. Right now it's egg layers, but broilers, we've got some opportunities to do some studies with broilers, and we're going to take advantage of those. With the horses, we're currently looking at the holes and seeing what the nutritional opportunity is with those, working with Virginia Tech on some of that work. So what challenges do we have? All of them. I mean, it's the hemp industry, right? So we got a lot of challenges ahead of us. But if we keep falling forward, we keep joining calls like this and figuring out how to solve these small challenges, some of these bigger challenges start to go away. And quite honestly, volume is going to solve almost all of these challenges that we have. So that's the end. We are a nonprofit. We do accept donations to continue on the good work that we do. If you want to support the Hemp Feed Coalition, please go to the hempfeedcoalition.org website and support us. We will spend the money getting animals approved to eat hemp. That's what we'll do with that. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, Andrew. I would second that and encourage people to be supportive of the Hemp Feed Coalition in whatever way is possible. As a grower and processor, definitely can feel the momentum picking up with that change for egg layers, and that just, there's a lot of momentum behind that. This is the first big domino to fall, and I know that your next application will take a similar amount of time and effort and money, and so we should get behind that. Obviously has a lot of good implications for Kansas. We did have a question from Kelly in the chat about the AFCO MOU and how the process could maybe change. Do you know a lot about that right now, or is that something you understand how the process will be impacted?
Yeah, so the FDA has put out some, I guess we'll call it good documentation on what that path looks like. It's hard to say exactly how this is going to be impacted within our industry. We see that there could be a potential shortcut here if we don't have to go through the AFCO process, because we did gain acceptance from the FDA much sooner than we did with AFCO. But the FDA doesn't have a publishing guideline. So the FDA may then turn back to AFCO for publishing, which would then mean that AFCO then approves it. So we're still trying to sort out exactly what that looks like. It won't affect the next year and a half of work that we're going to need to do with the FDA on a testing standpoint and scientific standpoint. So by that point, the roadmap should be a lot more clear.
That's really good to know. We've been wondering. Thank you so much, Andrew. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Frank Corriego for his segment with Dr. Dossi from Pittsburgh State University's National Institute for Materials Advancement. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Andrew. Pretty exciting to be here on the 5th annual conference, Hemp Conference in Kansas. Just to take a couple of seconds, when Sarah and I started this informally in 2019, shortly after the 2018 Farm Bill, and we really didn't know what was going to happen, other than we were learning as fast as we could about hemp, and we decided to go ahead and launch that. And it's so much fun to see what's happened in the last 5 years. I want to thank Sarah for being such a huge part of this. We focused at the time in two of the big segments of hemp production and processing, and that was the grain for feed as well as the fiber from the stalk. And we have stayed supporting of all aspects of hemp in the state of Kansas, but these are the two things that we have focused on. And having said that, I am very excited. I feel privilege and to have the opportunity to introduce the next speaker, Dr. Tim Dawsey, the president of the National Institute of Material Advancement for Pittsburgh State University. You'll forgive me for reading to you a little bit about Dr. Dawsey's background, but there's a lot and it's very rich. So I'm going to have to read verbatim some of these things for you. Dr. Dawsey received his PhD in polymer chemistry from the University of Southern Mississippi, and he has several decades of industrial experience in polymers/plastics, as well as research on new products, new polymers, and development for processing, as well as industry and business applications. After serving as a dean of the College of Technology at Pittsburgh State University, he assumed the role of executive director, president for NEMA, which is the National Institute for Material Advancement. As director of this prestigious research facility, he has been involved in a lot of, is the leading organization in Kansas and in the Midwest and other places regarding advancement of polymers and plastics and existing as well as new materials coming to the table. Under Dr. Dawsey's leadership, NEMA is partnering with polymer producers, packaging producers, and leading polymer research institutes to provide solutions to different challenges in current agricultural plastic usages, as well as discovering new opportunities where materials may provide relief to daily obstacles in farming and ranching. So it is a privilege to introduce Dr. Dawsey, and I will start with one quick question and ask him to elaborate a little bit more on the role of NEMA for folks that are not familiar with this wonderful resource that we have at Pittsburgh State University. So Dr. Dawsey, if you want to elaborate a little bit more on what you do and what NEMA does for the rest of our participants, that would be great.
Thanks, Frank, and thanks, Sarah, for the invitation to be here. And I appreciate everybody's time. I definitely have got to come up with an abbreviated bio, I think. So first of all, I will apologize. I know you're just seeing a silhouette. I got this bright light behind me and my office lights can't compete, but that's probably not something you should be distressed about. Believe me, you're not missing anything. I think one of the big questions typically would come to mind, I think, is, Frank, as he introduced me, I'm a polymers and plastics guy. What the heck does that have to do with hemp? And, I think obviously most of the folks on this call are familiar with the benefits, potential benefits of industrial hemp from the fiber standpoint. And that is really my area of interest. I'm hoping it's complementary to what Andrew just went over around the use of the seed and components there. We do have some interest in the hemp oils, but primarily looking at the hemp fiber from the bast in here. We're talking about some great potential in industrial applications. And really, if you looked at the focus at National Institute of Materials, and I invite every one of you to come visit us. We love giving tours and showing what we've got and exchanging ideas. But our focus is around sustainability. What do we have to do to build out a materials? We all hear about plastics and how evil they are every time we pick up the paper or turn on the news. And, I continue to say that. I don't know if anybody actually picks up the paper anymore, but every time we see the news, we talk about the evils of plastic. So, what we're doing is trying to mitigate those challenges by using renewable resources, reduce our dependence on fossil fuels and materials for that, and make materials that can have a planned life cycle. So the whole circular economy becomes a reality. Hemp, the way this came to my interest in here as my touring around the state of Kansas is really looking at opportunities. Many of you, or some of you at least, may have participated in our farms program that we put on. NEMA, we partnered with Virginia Tech and with Arizona State University and K-State to put on what we call farms. That's Farmers Accelerating Research in Material Science. So we brought farmers and ranchers in to meet with material scientists from here at NEMA, from Virginia Tech, and from Arizona State, and talk about challenges in agriculture, the broad picture of agriculture. And then after we spent a full day with the farmers and ranchers after they went away, then we, as the scientists, gathered and talked about what did we hear and where can material science come to play. And in the middle of all of that, I was doing quite a bit of touring around the Kansas area, and I'm looking at Western Kansas, at the huge challenges there with climate change coming in, rainfall changes on things, drought conditions, semi-arid environments on here. And I'm trying to think, what type of crops might we be able to use in some of these areas as rotational crops or whatever to give the farmers alternatives to our classic sorghum and wheat. And I'm not knocking those products as well, but just saying, what are our options that we might be able to look at? And hemp is one of those that I'll have to admit, I naively settled on saying, you know what? It looks to me like, at least everything I've seen, and I qualified this as being naive. I'm like, darn, hemp can grow anywhere. It's a weed. Okay, we all know that's a little more challenging than that, and there's different aspects of it. But as we're getting in, I think the key point here is around that fiber. It's extremely lightweight. It's extremely strong materials. We've got in the bast fiber, we've got lots of length to work with. Those kind of things are really true attributes for the hemp. And as we're looking at composite materials, there's two pieces to a composite. And for those of you not familiar with the language, and I'm talking about a composite, I'm talking about, if you think of fiberglass boat, for instance, that is made of glass fibers with a polymer matrix, an epoxy matrix, holding all of that together, binding it together. Well, what I'm talking about is a similar situation where we take a hemp fiber, a natural fiber, and we incorporate it into a polymer matrix. And in this instance, we do much of our work with bio-based polymers. So we use soybean oil, we use corn oil, we've used hemp oil to make polymers from. And if we embed these natural fibers in it, now we've got strong, lightweight composite materials that can be used for a broad range of applications. And oh, by the way, they should be inherently biodegradable. Now, we don't know that for sure. We have to test those, and we can adjust the factors on that. So that's really the focus that we've been looking at, is how can we use that? And they're not just in composite structures. Like I said, the hemp oils, we've looked at that. We've actually made rigid foams from those that can be used as spray-in insulation and construction applications. So from a producer standpoint, we're making high value uses of these materials. The producer may not realize value directly from that, but if we can increase demand for that, now all of a sudden those number of acres that Andrew was calling out, if we have a greater demand for those materials in these higher applications, then we've got benefit from that. So once again, I don't want to eat up a lot of folks' time here on this, but I'm trying to build the point is that at NEMA, what we're focusing on, we are focusing on polymer science, plastics, and those material science. But we're sitting in the middle of an agricultural world. If we look at mid-America, from Nebraska, the Dakotas, Colorado, Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, we're in an ideal location for these to be using these resources. So it's only logical that we tie the agriculture with the manufacturing. And oh, by the way, Andrew touched on a really, really important point that I think is tangent to what we're looking at. Is you look at the retirements on there, all of that from the farm, the retirement sales for people stepping away. I believe there's a play in that because there are so many of our students that we're graduating that are leaving the state of Kansas and going elsewhere for great jobs. A part of my thoughts around the manufacturing base is if we can take the agricultural products, we can use those in the materials-based manufacturing, then we can build a materials-based manufacturing economy here that is much more stable. We've got built that economic diversity in. We keep some of those kids if we give them jobs here to stay here to help on the farms. They're here locally on here. And oh, by the way, some of those who have graduated with 10 to 15 years of experience now have places to come back and bring that 10 to 15 years of experience and help with the agricultural as well as the manufacturing side. So that's sort of a short of it. I just want to once again emphasize, come visit us. Southeast Kansas is not a bad place to drop in on. So come take a look. We love to show off what we've got, and we love to hear ideas around how we can use those products and so forth. So once again, thanks, Frank. Thanks, Sarah. And I hope everybody has a good exchange of ideas through this. And I'm more than happy to take any questions if anybody has any. Thanks much.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Dossi. This is, as I said, exciting. And also, what we have done up to this point with Andrew and Dr. Dossi is provide a 30,000-foot view, if you would, of the two big segments that the Kansas Hemp Consortium is focused on. One is the grain, the oil as a food and feed item, which is a huge industry in our country and around the world. And the other one is the world of polymers and plastics, which is something that touches just about every area of our life. So with these big pictures, we proceed to more detailed items that we're going to cover in this conference. It is also my privilege to introduce the Deputy Secretary of the Kansas Department of Agriculture, Mr. Josh McKean. So, Josh.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. Can everyone hear okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. Thanks, Mindy. So I just wanted to give a quick update. We are happy to be here, and thank you, Sarah, and everyone who's worked on this to put this together. Certainly, the industry has faced different challenges over the years. So I'm happy to hear some of the updates from the previous speakers to show some of the opportunities that the industry has here in Kansas. Real quick, I do have a few slides to share. So if I can go ahead and send a request to do that.
You should be good to go.
All right. Just this first slide reviews the licenses that we've had in Kansas over the years. Obviously, the number of licensees has declined, but this is consistent with what we've seen in other states. So I don't want to spend too much time on that, but this map shows where those licensees are. You can see it's really spread out throughout the state. I did just want to focus a little bit on this slide, however, just because it shows that the industry, it appears, has started to increase the number of acres planted. We're still working on the numbers for acres harvested, but even though the number of licensees has declined, it's clear that those people that are staying with the industry have seen some more success and, planting more acres. And obviously, the industry here in Kansas has a number of opportunities with our local processors as well. So we're excited to see that growth. We hope to continue to see that growth. And this slide just reviews some preliminary information from the FSA about how potentially this trend has been seen across the country. So with that, as many of you know, we have started to we have reached out to the USDA, and they have agreed to license Kansas growers for the upcoming growing season, which we're excited for. And we have done this for a number of reasons, not least of which because we have seen other states similar to Kansas start to take this approach as well. We know the USDA is a great partner and has a program that is very similar to Kansas's program. And certainly our industrial hemp act was completely modeled off of what the USDA has as well. So all of that is to say, I know the USDA has done a really good job of reaching out to a lot of our current licensees to talk to them about what that process looks like with the USDA. I will defer to them on their program and what that looks like. But for the next growing year, that's our plan, is to allow growers in the state to get licensed through the USDA. We would still ask, and we would still expect that all the growers that were licensed this year, finish out your season in good standing with the program. As many of you know, the information about all licensees licensed through the USDA is publicly available, very accessible, and they have a lot of great resources on the USDA website. You could just spend days looking through all the resources that they have for growers. So with that, the only other thing I wanted to touch on, and happy to answer any questions. I also think we have Brandon Hoke here, who has worked with the industry for the agency for a long time here. So I just want to acknowledge the work that he's done. As many of you have probably heard, our latest information is that the Farm Bill is likely to not get, there's unlikely to be a federal Farm Bill long term in the next few weeks. There are still some Republican governors recently called for a reauthorization of the Farm Bill with some changes made to it, but it appears as if there may just be a one-year extension, is the latest information that I have. That's been a source of frustration for a lot of our traditional commodity farmers as well. So we'll continue to be monitoring that at the federal level and how that may impact the industry here in Kansas, while at the same time, we have discussed potentially trying to make some updates to our state commercial industrial hemp act as well, just to reflect the fact that the USDA is licensing growers here in the state of Kansas. But given the uncertainty with the federal Farm Bill, it may be prudent to wait on that. So we're still hopeful, though, that especially with the USDA's ability to license growers in the state, that can encourage more growers to try hemp or to come back and try hemp again if they were previously licensed, and certainly encourage them to work with their peers and Sarah and Melissa and everyone else that's working on this issue and working with growers to help them plant a successful crop, so that we can continue to see growth in this industry. And the last thing I'll mention is just that, as many of you know, water conservation has been a huge priority for the current administration here in Kansas and the legislature. And so to whatever degree possible, we're able to advance the goal of conserving water throughout the state through alternative crops. We certainly want to support that as well. So with that, if there's any questions, I'm happy to respond to those, but thanks for having us, and thanks for all the work that you do.
Thank you so much, Josh. It's been a pleasure working with the KDA over the past 6 years. We also appreciate Braden's efforts. And we're going to just go ahead and hand it right off to Vicki Felder with the USDA, and she's going to dive in on the technicalities of getting a license and applying to be a hemp producer through the USDA. So Vicki, you should have access to share your slides. And welcome.
Okay.
Thanks for being here.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. 1 second here. Let me see if I can share my screen with you.
Perfect.
Great. Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you. So I just wanted to go over with you all just a couple of slides and stuff regarding the license. I'm Vicki Felder. I work with the USDA hemp program. I am the overseer of license and applications when they come into hemp, our office. So what the USDA regulate is states and tribes with their own program. So states and tribes may manage their hemp program in their jurisdiction, but they have to get approval with the USDA for their hemp plan. And then the USDA reviews and approve the hemp plans to be sure they're in conformance with the final rule. The USDA also audit the states and tribes and USDA growers as well. So the USDA also directly manage growers in states and tribes that do not wish to have their own program. They turn them over to us and we operate the program on their behalf. And so the USDA provides direct oversight to these growers. We also handle the production of hemp. That is the growing, the harvesting, the planting of hemp. That's covered by us, states and tribes with hemp plans, that's under us, and hemp growers directly. We do not regulate the manufacturing side of hemp, that is transportation of hemp and hemp-derived products. So the FDA is the main federal entity that regulates products made for human and animal consumption or medicine or supplements. So the license information that pertains to you will be, there is no license fee for the USDA license. The applications are accepted on a rolling basis throughout the year. And the only fees that you would be required to have is for your FBI background check. That's with like the fingerprinting and then testing of your having the hemp sampled and tested, and then potentially if you have like a remediation or disposal, all those fees you would have to pay, the grower would have to pay. The USDA issued license is valid until the December the 31st of the third year in which it was issued. So you have 3 years with our license. Any changes to your license information can be made, like if you have a name change, address change, telephone number, or email address, that can be done in the hemp database, our database. So license information, again, one of the things that you need to do that's very important, one of the steps is completing your FBI background check. So you would have to do that for yourself. And if you had any key participants, they would need a background check as well. Remember too, that the FBI report is due when you apply for the license. It's only valid for 60 days. So if you have an old FBI report that was a year ago, you're gonna need to get a new one. Even if you had one 8 months ago, you would need a new one. It has to be within that 60 days. This is the FBI link for growers to get their FBI background check. So the electronic way, the electronic request is like your best option. Paper request is the slowest method. And then the FBI has an approved Chandler. So with the Chandler, it costs more, but you would contact the FBI and find out the location for the kiosk to use the Chandler. And like I said, it would cost you a little bit more. But that's how you could get your FBI background checks. So now we use login.gov. So when you're getting your background check, it's a good idea to around the same time is to create a login.gov account. This login.gov account is for you to be able to log into our hemp database. So there you would give your credentials over to login.gov, and then they will register you and all that good stuff where you will be able to get into our system. Once everything is done and we're ready to process your application and everything, what we do is we will contact you and process the application and everything, and then upload a certificate into your file. So in the hemp database, you should be able to download this certificate. This certificate is very important as well because several reasons. I usually tell people to make, once they get this certificate, to make several copies of it. The certificate will have your name or your business name. It will have your license number, the date that it was issued, the address, and then the date that it expired. The reason to make several copies is when you report to your local farm service agency office, you will need to take a copy of the certificate with you. That's important because they need to record the license number on the certificate in the right format. We usually get a lot of questions from even like growers say, well, I don't see my information in the database. Well, one of the reasons why is that the license number has not been recorded in the right format. So that's a little bit of tidbit of information there. But anyway, and then it's good to have a certificate. A lot of people will have a copy of their certificate at their facility where they grow their hemp. They will have a copy. I usually tell them as well to keep a copy handy. Like if you call into the office and you have questions, it's easy for us to find out what's going on with your license or other information if you can provide us with the license number. So it's always good to keep extra copies of the certificate. And then that's what I just mentioned, like when you go to the FSA office, you want to take the certificate so they can record your license information exactly like what's on the certificate. And you probably need to also call them first before you just show up because sometimes it's by appointment only. So this is our contact information here. If you have any questions or concerns or anything like that, you can always visit our website. Then this is our email address and our phone number, toll-free number. Under that toll-free number, we have different options that you can press for information you're seeking. One of the options is if you're looking for hemp information, or if you're looking for general information, sampling agents, compliance, labs, the list goes on and on. Any questions?
Thank you, Vicky. We had a question that came up when I was talking with a grower yesterday. Does the USDA still require the same or something similar in the way of signage at your hemp field? We've had to put up a sign, excuse me, under the Kansas Department of Ag. There was a certain number of dimensions. It included our license number, name, phone number. Is that still a requirement?
No, no, but it's
Okay.
always helpful to post it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's very helpful to post it.
Okay. Well,
Mhm.
great. We'll try to keep on track with our agenda here, Vicky. I really appreciate your help today, and we'll try to be as helpful to prospective growers as possible and reach out to you when necessary. And we'll give Graham a minute to get his presentation pulled up. Also from the USDA, he's going to continue this conversation from the perspective of what's required to become a licensed sampling agent. So that's also an important part of having a USDA producer's license. And we appreciate both Vicki and Graham for expanding on these two topics. Graham, whenever you're ready, we will look forward to hearing from you.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. And Josh, real quick, thanks for the kind words on the program. It's always nice to hear. Not that we don't think we're doing a good job, but nobody calls and tells us we're doing a good job. So it is nice to hear, and
Anytime.
I will share that with our team because I know they will appreciate hearing that.
For sure.
Okay, let me share my screen. There we go.
Perfect.
Good. Everybody can see that?
Yep.
Okay. So, my name is Graham Davis. I've been with the domestic hemp program for almost 4 years. I actually started the week the final rule was published in 2021. My responsibilities with the program are point of contact for sampling and sampling agent training, law enforcement point of contact, and most recently I started a GIS initiative within the program to do taking all of our data and mapping it into useful information. Okay, let's see here. All right. So let's see. Let me start by starting with the sampling agent eligibility. We are looking for sampling agents in the state of Kansas, as well as Iowa and Nebraska. And in terms of eligibility, sampling agents cannot be currently licensed to grow hemp under a USDA state or tribal hemp production program or employed by a business or individual that is licensed to grow hemp. And the sampling agents cannot be related or to a licensee or a key participant in the same house, mainly just to avoid any conflicts of interest, potential conflicts of interest. So in order to be a sampling agent, the first step is we require you to take our initial sampling agent training, and that essentially provides an overview of the regulations and guidance that authorizes sampling agents to collect samples of hemp from licensed producers. It also covers proper procedures for collecting samples of hemp produced both outdoors and indoors in greenhouses and other structures. And these are the compliance samples that need to be taken within 30 days of harvest or remediation samples. If there's producers, we generally get the question, you can take your own what we call informative samples just to gauge where your hemp is, what the numbers are, the THC numbers are in your hemp during the growing season for sort of informational purposes, but that compliance sample must be taken by a certified sampling agent. So, as Vicki mentioned, we've got a learning platform called the Hemp e-learning platform, which of course, we're a government agency, so it's abbreviated to HELP. Currently, we have 9 courses on the site. You can go to our main web page, and on the left-hand side, you'll see sort of a table of contents for the hemp database, the help platform, and that'll give you the list of courses. If you click on the help link, it'll give you the list of courses and how to sign up for an account. The sampling agent training consists of 4 lessons, which are in the arrows above, regulatory requirements, types of sampling, sample planning, and then the actual sample collection. After completing the 4 lessons, you would need to take a assessment that's in the help platform with this course, and you must achieve a score of 90% or higher to pass the assessment. And that assessment can be taken as many times as needed. It's a random assortment of questions, so it's a big pool of questions, and so those will randomize each time. So you will not be retaking the exact same test every time, but you might get similar questions. And then you will receive a sampling agent certificate upon successful completion of the course and achieving the 90% or higher on the assessment. So this on the left-hand side here is an approved, USDA approved hemp sampling agent certificate with the dates when it was issued and when it expires. They're valid for a year. Again, USDA licensed hemp producers are not permitted to be sampling agents. Just to clear up any confusion, the USDA is not hiring individuals to work for the USDA. Sampling agents simply operate as independent contractors. They set up their own fees for compliance and remediation sampling, and are responsible for creating their own forms, collection forms, billing forms, data collection, all the acknowledgements. And as I mentioned earlier, and you see on the certificate, sampling agent certification is valid for 1 season or 1 year. So in terms of reporting, as Vicky mentioned, we have the hemp e-management platform, which is our database where all licensed producers licensed by the USDA would have an account. Additionally, all USDA certified sampling agents would need to create an account in the hemp e-management platform. And sampling agents would then be responsible for entering in the sampling event details into the hemp system. So the first step is the producers would contact certified sampling agents to come take their sample, schedule that out, and then the producer schedules a sampling event in their portal in the hemp database, and then they attach both the lab of their choosing and the sampling agent of their choosing to that sampling event. And when they select you as a sampling agent, you then would get notified that you have a sampling event in your portal. And upon completion of that sampling event, you will be asked to enter in the details of that sampling event. And here is just a screenshot of a particular sampling event and the 2 lots that were sampled. Sampling agent recertification, as I mentioned, the sampling agent certification is valid for a year. To recertify, sampling agents must complete a sampling agent refresher training, which can also be found in help. And then sampling agents would then receive, upon completion of that, they would receive an updated sampling agent certificate for the new year. So as Vicky posted already, if you have any questions, just email the Farm Bill at .hemp@usda.gov or call. And if you call, you can click on the sampling agent questions, and that it will then get transferred over to me. Or if you email, just in the subject line, put sampling agent, and it'll go into the subfolder that I manage and I'm monitoring daily for questions. And that's kind of the quick overview where I know I speak for Vicky when I say we're excited to be a part of the state of Kansas and taking over the program there. It's very interesting to see how much it's changed from the Farm Bill in 2018 to now in terms of the shift kind of from the CBD now over to the fiber and grain side. And we're excited to kind of dip our toes more into the Midwest and taking on, we have Missouri, but we're also taking now Kansas, Iowa, and Nebraska. So it's exciting.
Very exciting. I think it says a lot that Kansas, Nebraska, and Iowa are all making that switch coming January 1st, 2025. And Kelly Ripple with Kansans for Hemp is going to lead our next segment, and he is a licensed sampling agent. So he might start off with a few words about how that process has gone for him, and then he's going to lead our producer panel. So thanks a lot, Graham and Vicki. We really appreciate your time. We look forward to working with you all in the coming season. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
It does look like we had one question.
Yes, thank you very much. Sarah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Mindy, I think the question was from Kelly, so if he wants to pose it or.
Yes, I did have a couple questions. And they're there in the chat, just kind of curious about what we're anticipating from the Farm Bill and whether or not we may see an exemption for fiber and grain producers. I know that had been talked about as a lobbying effort for, I believe, a couple of years now. But anyway, yes, I wanted first off just say thank you so much to the Small Business Development Center for hosting this, Sarah, all of our speakers. This is a really exciting time, and we're bringing back a legacy crop because, as some people know, Kansas was the first in America in the production of hemp bushels per acre in 1863, and so we really are getting back to our roots here. I've been honored to be a part of that. The sampling agent process is very smooth, and I have to give another congratulations to Vicki and Graham and the USDA team for developing the sampling agent training and that whole process, because it is very user friendly, and I would be more than happy to help anyone in Kansas or otherwise to go through that training, or talk about things, some best practices, because quite frankly, the more sampling agents we have throughout the state, the lower that cost will be to farmers, and that's what we want ultimately. Is we know that hemp promotes local economics first, and so that's what we want to optimize. So next, we're going to welcome 3 farmers from the area that have direct experience both with fiber and grain production and processing. And so we've asked them to share about their specific experience and also kind of reflect on how the change from regulations over to USDA has looked like. So, of course, we kind of have to take a step back. When you don't grow a commodity for nearly a century due to perhaps bias and unpopular policies, now there's a good deal of catching up for everyone along that supply chain, and these leaders have been paying the fees. They've been in the trenches, filling out all the paperwork, dealing with the business of hemp production, and they've taken the hits that the industry has, which are many. Luckily, they are decreasing all the time. Now, they are successfully producing and harvesting hemp right now. They're improving their local economies, and they want to help you be successful with your hemp-related efforts as well. So whether that's in growing, processing, insuring, financing, manufacturing, or handling, or some other way that your business and expertise can maybe thrive in the hemp industry, hopefully everyone will learn something from these experts in their field, and please do reach out to them. So first up, we're going to hear from the hemp producer and processor, Melissa Nelson. She is the founding field science behind Performance Crop Research. In addition to being a renowned crop researcher, Melissa is also heading up a hemp fiber revolution. Co-founder of South Bend Industrial Hemp, Melissa and her family are advancing the future of agriculture through hemp. Located near Great Bend, Kansas Bend Industrial Hemp produces raw American-made herd and bast manufacturers across the nation. They supply them. Now, South Bend Industrial Hemp Processing is the largest Midwest based hemp processing facility. So, Melissa, we are so excited to have your perspective here as a hemp processor and producer. So, it's really impressive and remarkable what you and your team have put together in Kansas. I'm honored to have watched it. And the Growers Network, obviously, that you're supporting. Many congrats on all the great work, and thank you for making the time here today. You've had a lot of conversations, I know, with farmers from throughout the entire region and world, from prospective producers, those who haven't grown hemp yet, but are maybe looking into it or considering it. What do they most often ask, and maybe what's some good advice?
Well, thank you for that introduction. In terms of the most common question that we get,
muted. Are you?
I'm not muted. Can
Yeah, you're
everyone hear
good,
me?
Melissa. Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, thank you for the introduction. So the most common question that we're getting is the economics of it. It has to work. At the end of the day, farming is a business. You can have all the feel goods of the family and passing it on from generation to generation, but at the end of the day, the land has to be profitable. And so we do our best to create a spreadsheet. We go through it line by line with the farmer. We talk about the inputs, what you can expect in terms of costs throughout the season, and really ultimately what your potential profitability is at the end of the day. That's the biggest question that we get. There's two main audiences that we're really talking to, particularly this time of year. You've got the farmers that are actually like doing the work and putting the implements in the ground. And then you've got the landowners that see the vision and the potential of hemp. And so we love to bring those two parties together and have that conversation together, because sometimes what the landowner thinks is an option isn't actually doable by the farmer, like whether cropping histories or something like that. So making sure both parties are on the same page and answering those profitability questions, and everybody is happy at the end of the season.
I'm not sure if Kelly might have dropped off. I was getting a little bit of choppiness from him. But we do have a second question, Melissa, so I'll just go ahead and ask it maybe while Kelly's reconnecting. The second question was, how do you see the transition from KDA to USDA helping to scale the industry? Do you think it will indeed encourage more farmers?
That makes a lot of sense. I love that strategy and kind of getting everyone on the same page, right at the get-go. That's a really good strategy.
There he goes again. Do you want me to go ahead and answer it, Sarah?
Yeah, I think so. Kelly, I already read the second question to Melissa. There was a little break there.
Okay. So we see this as a definite positive change in the industry is moving to the USDA program. And the reason is we don't require a minimum acreage for the farmers that we work with. And when you think about Kansas, we're supporting farmers from the western Kansas border to the eastern Kansas border. And when you think of topography, like within the state, the eastern side of the state is broken up into a lot smaller fields and a lot of tree lines, ridges, things like that, that are going to make the field sizes different than the half-mile sections that you've got out in western Kansas. And so when you break that down to a cost per acre, the western Kansases had the advantage, or the western Kansas farmers with the large acre potential in one field, the way the KDA was set up, those licenses were a reduced cost per acre, a smaller cost per acre than what the eastern Kansas farmers were seeing with all the different lots that they were having to do, with just how their fields were broken up naturally. So we're excited for the USDA hemp program. I think farmers are going to be excited. I think they're going to be more interested to try, just because that cost risk is going to go down. Poor Kelly. He's struggling.
You good, Kelly? No.
That makes sense. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hey, can you hear me now?
There's a little bit of a lag, but I think we're okay.
Gosh dang. Hopefully there's not too much of a lag.
Looking good.
Okay, thank you. My apologies, but thank you, Melissa, for your insight. I do also agree that the move to USDA is going to be beneficial in the long run. So now I would like to introduce John McKee. John is a 70-year-old landowner with a diverse background that spans military service, management, and education. He proudly served in both the Air Force and the Navy before transitioning to a successful career in food service management, real estate sales, and property management. John holds a bachelor's degree in early childhood development and adult re-education, reflecting on his commitment to lifelong learning and personal growth. Throughout his career, he is focused on training and team management, developing skills that he now applies to his current role in farm management. This marks his third year managing a farm where he has embraced the innovative practices and sustainability. In his second year of raising hemp, John is passionate about exploring the agricultural potential of this versatile crop. With a strong belief in mentorship, he aims to share his knowledge and experience with the next generation of farmers, kind of like what was talking about earlier, bringing our future generations back home to the farm. So, John, all of the producers on the panel today have grown both fiber and grain dominant crops side by side this year. It's really a unique perspective that we're really looking forward to hearing, what you've learned in this process, because we know it's important for farmers to have a contract with their processor. It's a requirement. And you've worked with South Bend Industrial Hemp and Melissa, as well as Midwest Hemp Technology, to sell your fiber and grain crops. It's such an exceptional experience at this point in the learning curve. And I think you're really one of perhaps the only people to conduct this kind of research at scale in the state. So thank you, first off, for doing that and for pushing the crop forward and for being here today. So what do you think is the most important thing for a farmer, either new or older, to consider when they're weighing whether or not to grow hemp, both for grain or fiber varieties?
Mindy, if you can unmute John, that might help out. She'll get it, John.
How about that?
Sarah,
Are we there?
are you able to hear?
Yep.
All right. Thank you so much. This is all new to me. Not only the farming, but this video conferencing and everything. It's I'm a little old school, but one of the most important thing in my way of thinking has been that the most important thing is different for each individual, each farmer. But for me personally, the most important thing was to get started. I've been wanting to be involved with the hemp program since it was approved with the farm program, the farm bill. And it took me a while to get to the point where I could get involved. My wife has family land, and we had it rented, and it wasn't working out. We saw the land being not, in my opinion, not being taken care of. So getting started to make some changes is very important. I think we've touched on the paperwork and all that. That can be overwhelming for new people, especially someone who hasn't been involved in the paperwork that it takes to get into farming and to do it properly and legally. It can be overwhelming, and the South Bend, Melissa has helped out a lot with their information and their programs for how to get involved and get started. And Sarah has been very, very beneficial. So I think one of the important things is to be in touch with the industry leaders, the people who are making things happen. Another thing that we need to think about that I kind of overlooked was the fact that there's different processing for fiber and different processing for seed. So, having the equipment or knowing what equipment you're going to rent or what equipment you can co-opt is very important, because there's a big difference between harvesting seed and just harvesting fiber. Another important item I thought was something that I should have done a little more research into was the objective of what I was doing with the hemp. We started out with the idea that we just wanted to work on the land and improve the land and improve the soil. And I felt like hemp was probably one of the ways to do that, along with looking for additional rotational crop product. And so we decided to go with the hemp, and I don't regret it. It's been a challenge. And I would say that's one of the things that most people need to know, is that it will be a challenge, but by being flexible and staying in touch with the people who are supporting the industry, you can do it. It can be done. So the most important thing is going to be based on what people do and what their objectives are. Some people I've talked to, they kind of want to do it kind of as a hobby. Other people are looking at it specifically for a rotational crop substitute. And that's what we're looking at, also for improving the land and the environment and supporting the community.
That's fantastic. I love it. Really appreciate your efforts to also incorporate, regenerative practices on your farm. I know you consider hemp a part of that effort, and in reality, regenerative systems, as we know, involve many different components and factors. Can you maybe share a little bit more about the environmental benefits that you're seeing on your farm that's specific to hemp?
Yes, Kelly, thank you. That is something that has kind of surprised me, and how quickly I've seen things kind of start to turn around. One of the reasons I went with hemp was because I was standing on the north end of the property one day, and the wind had come up, and I was just getting pelted with sand and rock, dust, and I realized that had been going on, because that was a problem. So I went to the south side of the property and stayed there for a little bit, and I did not feel the same type of experience with the sand and the dirt being blown. You can see it being picked up from the land and pushed across, and I'm like, our topsoil is just being stripped away. So we decided we really needed to do something immediately. And so that has stopped. I was standing there the other day on the south end of the property when the wind was coming from the north, and I had absolutely no dirt, no sand blowing in my face. The soil was staying on the ground. There was moisture in the ground underneath the residue that's left in the fields. I was surprised at the number of birds that I saw this year. We had, I can't even name how many different types of birds I had noticed, but we had a lot of quail. I saw pheasant this year that I haven't seen in the past. And the only change we've made that's been made in the area that I'm farming is the change that we've made by growing hemp. May or may not be 100% the reason, but we got lots of wildlife right now. We're seeing lots more insects. I don't see the dust devils that I used to see coming off the land after harvest or after planting. We have so much more activity in the soil where the hemp crops were grown. I had some testing. I was doing some testing on the soil, and I can't prove it because I don't have enough records going back, but the increase in all of the areas that were tested were so much higher in the area of our soil for the hemp area than the rest of the farm. And nothing had changed. It had basically been farmed the same way with beans and corn and milo occasionally for years. But just in one year of the hemp field tested out higher in every category that was tested. And I'm not good with that kind of stuff. I'm just learning how to read all these reports and things. But the optimum, moderate to optimum, was what we tested out on the hemp field versus below normal or below, I'm not sure what it was, but we actually tested out, the soil tested out better just after 1 year. And so that, along with the weed suppression, that we're not having to use the chemicals that had been being used as much before on the other crops, the soil, breaking down the soil, the roots going down deeper, breaking the hard pan and pulling up the nutrients from the deeper down the soil. I think all of that contributes to the birds, the insects, the wildlife, and just a general better soil condition all around. But that's just my opinion, and I've got nothing to go on except the last couple of years' experience. Thank you.
Well, that's great insight. I will say that it does kind of confirm a lot of the data and research that has been done over the years. So yeah, really appreciate your insight there. So we've got to talk about harvest for grain and fiber varieties too. So as a country, we're really just starting to understand better and dial in on those numerous nuances that are in between end uses and what it's going to take to plant and harvest hemp. So for example, like the methods are very different if you're combining the grain or using a sickle bar to cut the fiber. This is another area where you have some unique insight. And so what are your best recommendations for successfully harvesting grain and fiber? And also congratulations on a successful year. It's very impressive.
Thank you. We worked hard, and I am so blessed. The success that we've had is contributed 100% to the young men that I'm working with. As a landowner, I wasn't satisfied with what was happening with the land. I could see some things that I thought, why could we change this and we changed that? But the operator, was not on the same line, same communication line with me. And so we had to make some changes. So the young men that I'm working with right now have experience. The young man has got an agronomy degree. He's very young. He's in his mid-20s and just starting out, and he needed land to work, and I needed an operator that was willing to look at doing things a little bit different. I like the regenerative type of attitudes that I have run across with people that are doing that. He is open to the hemp planting. I talked to a lot of people that just absolutely would not even consider putting hemp in or harvesting hemp. So the success we had for this year was totally with my operators and the young men that were willing to do some things differently. The things that we found that made a big difference, we knew we were constantly looking to find that sweet spot with the seed, the combine, working the combine with the speed and the power, and not running too fast, not trying to fill it too full, I guess. And I apologize for my terminology is not what most farmers use, or I don't even know the terms for some of the things that we've been doing, but the adjustments was real important. The speed, not feeding it too fast. One of the things that I keep hearing people talk about, and we experienced, was that if it rolls, it wraps. As I was saying, I think I've heard that more than once around places. In fact, maybe I got that from Melissa. I think I heard Melissa say that several times, but it's true. Cleaning up the equipment and keeping it working in top working condition, I think, is important. I found that a Sawzall and cutting through the fibers instead of trying to hand pull them out of the wrapping, the Sawzall worked really well for us. And we just jumped down every couple of rounds or so. We would stop and clean up if we needed to. And we got through with probably less than an hour and a half of cleaning time for 20 acres, which I think was really good compared to what we saw the year before, and the time it took to clean equipment when you just run through everything and just try to knock it out, get finished with it as quickly as possible. It actually created more work on the backside. And I recently heard a story about someone who their equipment broke down in the field, and after listening to the comments and stuff, I was thinking, people really do. We don't take, and I did this myself, we don't take the problems sometimes that we hear about as something that we can do immediately ourselves. And I know that getting down out of the combine is not something farmers traditionally like to do, but having someone to clean that machine up on a regular basis made a big difference. Not pushing too hard, staying in touch with your people who are supporting you. Melissa and Sarah have been a well of knowledge and information for me, not being a farmer, not having a background in farming, gave me so many tips and so much information. And that is something we need to push real hard on, is keeping people informed. A good harvest, a successful harvest depends on a good planting, and a good planting depends on the preparation that you do beforehand, along with Mother Nature and whatever we can get her to provide us at the right time with the right levels of moisture and rain. And we can have great harvests. We can have some good harvests. Not always going to be the best, not always going to be as profitable as we would like, but it can be done. It's like you said, it's been done since the beginning of time. Hemp has been a commodity forever. We just lost the ability to grow it, produce it, and use it, which is what every one of you guys are doing. And I'm so proud to be involved in this industry and doing what we're doing, because it will make a change. It is making a change, and we can continue to improve and make those changes by communicating and staying in touch and helping one another work through the issues, and not just talking about the issues, but working through the issues. And we need to keep the information flowing. This is such a good deal. I appreciate it so much being here and having all you guys backing us up. New West Genetics was unbelievable with what they supported me with the information and everything. I just can't say enough about the support that we've had. I appreciate that. And thank you again.
Excellent. Oh, that's fantastic, John. Yes, thank you. So our next producer, Bill Cook, will also have some important information sharing regarding harvest. So we know that this is an area where we're still learning and establishing that infrastructure that's really going to be required to develop the grain market. And I think personally, one of the exciting things is the value add. You know, when we talk about versus soybean, that's a commodity grown for one purpose. Hemp, you can have multiple end uses. So Bill Cook, he is with Native Prairie Hemp. WJ Bill Cook has been involved in agriculture for more than 60 years. Cook is a lifelong family farmer and rural entrepreneur. He founded Nico Seed Farms Incorporated in the 70s, which he and his wife Emily ran for more than 30 years before passing it on to the next generation. From 2010 to 2014, he worked in South America, Asia, and Africa to grow new soybean traits and genetics in winter nurseries. Earlier in his career, Cook owned and operated a feed and chemical retail store, owned an implement dealership, managed an irrigation, bin, and equipment company, and led a corn and soybean marketing company. Bill has also been involved with bank boards and the Production Credit Association. Throughout his career, he's been affiliated with many professional organizations. These include the Missouri Crop Improvement, Missouri Foundation Seeds, and International Business Club. In 2019, Bill started working with hemp. For years, he had been conducting research trials with Lincoln University, and now he's working closely with USDA to develop and implement hemp research. And Bill's focus is creating on standard operating procedures, SOPs, and return on investments, or ROIs, specifically for hemp growers, so that hemp makes that financial and logistical sense for their farmers and their operations. He believes that hemp is the plant to be the miracle crop for the future. And I just want to say welcome, Bill. It's honored to have you here.
Well,
so the first question is going to be that Native Prairie is a research-focused hemp producer. And you've been, collaborating with universities and USDA in the federal hemp program. This has involved extensive variety trialing and going, really out of your way to share what you've learned. It is clear that you truly believe that in hemp's ability to be a net positive in the lives of farmers and the industry and in American lives, just in general. So what is it that you say keeps you optimistic about this?
Well, Kelly, before I answer that question, I would like to first thank Sarah and your group. I want to thank all your speakers, because in general, we are speaking the same song. A lot of things that you and your other folks that's presented here today have been very encouraging to me to hear. Plus, a lot of similarities that we all face if you're involved in the hemp industry. And we have a saying here at our research farm, hemp ain't easy. And we've learned that the hard way. So, but I did want to thank all of those folks. And I really want to give kind of a shout out here to USDA, because I know that Mr. Davis he said not a lot of people shared the positive things. But we've been through several years with our state rules and regulations. And whenever we did go the state just decided to get out, and USDA did take over that responsibility. The professionalism, the help, the everything that we've done with USDA has been just absolutely stellar. It's just been a tremendous opportunity, and I would share that with everybody here and everybody that's listening. Now, again, I'm talking a little bit before answering your question, but I want to let you know that I am an old guy. So it sounds like I've done a lot. I hung around with a lot of the right people. Agriculture is a wonderful industry to be involved in. So in saying that, I wanted to just share with you that, I was involved in the corn growers when they got started. I think I was the first secretary of the Missouri Corn Growers. One of your Kansas guys, a guy by the name of Earl Foote, he was the president of the Kansas organization, and he was about 25 years older, maybe 30 than I am. So we took about 10 years trying to get that corn growers thing up and going. And before you could get the sweeteners going, and then before you had ethanol going. So there was a lot of effort and energy, but USDA, our folks in leadership do provide such a resource of opportunities. And I suggest whenever those opportunities really are going to take place is when we get USDA and maybe this farm bill kind of working around in our favor, and we become a fair playing field with other commodity groups. Because I was also involved in working with the Soybean Association a lot when they was developing, the biodiesels and how those organizations came together, and how we had what we call POCOs. That would be producer-owned and controlled organizations. There was a lot of different things that our states and our federal programs gave us a helping hand on bringing farmers all together. And in that lies one of our biggest challenges. But I do want to share that USDA I think this thing is developing. Like I said, it was about 10 years before we seen things happen at the corn growers. About 6 or 8 years, same thing on soybeans. I've worked with different commodity groups. This is not easy. What you guys are doing and the value of what your experience and your commitment to this plant, in my opinion, and I've worked with genetics and seed and everything for 50 years, I believe that the hemp plant is truly a miracle plant. The hemp cannabis plant itself is, as it gets focused, as this energy develops, as the infrastructure builds, all of the things that we're doing now is we're kind of like the pioneers, the people that are taking a little bit of hits in the beginning to get the education, the information that we need for our growers and our consumers. So we got to get buy-in from those consumers. And they really need to realize, and they do, they're learning, and especially these young consumers, they're learning that the environment is a very important place. And to share some of the things that some of the other speakers talked about the environment, it is a miracle crop when it takes to changing the soil types, just all the things that plant can do just for on your soil is phenomenal. And then you can take it 100 different directions. We have encouraged people to do things as making hemp jewelry now and branding. Sarah's got some tremendous products coming out. So we encourage people to get engaged in hemp in some way. So I guess I wanted to share that before we dived into this harvest thing and what we have done with the universities. It's been a challenge, to say the least, on getting the data and getting the data collection. So what our focus is primarily is what was shared. I think one of your first speakers shared about it's got to have an ROI, it's got to have an SOP. Farmers have to make a living on it, but that there's several selections that you can go down, whether it's the CBD or whether it's the fiber or whether it's a grain, whether it's a flour. So there's several options that you can go down. But what we want to recommend to growers to do is just like your gentleman before, you got to start, but don't start big. Get your mind around your acres. And so one of the things we share with all of the growers And you got to keep in mind, now, I've been a farmer. I am a farmer. I talk farmer language, and it is it's real simple. You know, if they can't make a profit, they're not going to do it, and it can't be real hard either. So as you look at those things, our whole thing is to help share with farmers on how this thing grows and goes, and how they can actually make that happen on a larger scale on their personal farms. Now, we've learned from working with Lincoln and trying to get these harvests done. We've had a lot of farmers quit, and it's because, you know, they tear up their combines. They have this problem, that's problem. So the amount of people that hang in there is pretty tough. And we've got some, and they are hanging in there, but they're learning things like how we harvest this crop, how we put it up. And we've got an experiment going on with Sarah over there at Midwest, and we'll be taking some stuff and seeing how that herd and that fiber can get separated. But it's all goes back to the farm. Now, you are in Kansas, I'm in Missouri. So we have a saying in Missouri, and it's pretty true. And I don't know how I think it probably fits in Eastern Kansas too. You know, we're a bunch of hardheads, and our farmers are, you know, they want to see it. They want to see it on their farms. They want to see it with their neighbors. The research has got to be something that they can go and see. And the other thing, they got to trust that research. So what we always say is, first thing you want to do is give your farm a physical, just like you do your own body. You know, you got to figure out, and then you got to figure out latitude, longitude, and you got to figure out the varieties that's going to work best on your farm. And it doesn't make any difference whether it's grain or whether it's fiber or whether it's CBD or what it is that you're going to work with. Your soil types, your assets, your ability to move it, your transportation, all that is part of the recipe of your success on your farm. Now, I totally believe, and we really push farmers and talk to the consumers also, use the product, but we really push the farmers to do trials, because when this industry hits, and it's going to hit, it took a long time to get the corn, us to use corn as fuel and as sweetener, and it did the same thing on biodiesel. So this thing isn't easy, but it is going to happen because the crop is just too strong. It's too good. It's too good in many ways, whether it's environmentally, now, if you look at the numbers today, now I want to share this real quickly with the data side. My real success here has been with young people that are coming out of college and they really want to get inspired about growing hemp. And I was just fortunate to have a granddaughter that I've been working with a couple of years. Her name is Daphne Cook. We work together really close now. She is really good at numbers. She runs a program called VIPS. We do everything to collect data. And that's part of the way that you give that farm a physical. You've got to know your resources before you can pick the varieties that you're going to plant. And you also have to figure out where you're going to take this product. So in answering the harvest question, we've tore up a lot of equipment the last 2 or 3 years and lost growers because they had enough. You know, I tore my combine up and it cost me $27,000 to fix it. It was an $8,000 combine. So all those things happened to us since 2019. Great learning experience, the ones that's hung around. But the one thing that we did this year on the fiber side is we actually used a company out of Kansas. And actually, Sarah, I don't know, we're still working with them, trying to figure out the final harvest. The grain is not going to be that hard. We're trying things to let the grain all dry down evenly so you can harvest that crop and not have all the drying issues that you do when you harvest and have to wait too late, and then you lose 30% of the grain. So all those things we're learning, and it's been a great experience, but I can tell you we are better off today. We know more today. We're more capable today. The big thing is the infrastructure. Where are you going to take it? Now, it's a long way to Sarah's from, right over here in Harrisonville, Missouri, but you got to be able to haul it somewhere where your freight doesn't kill you. So that's part of your whole recipe. It's part of the way you're going to figure out your SOPs, big deal. SOP, big deal. and your SOPs drive you to your ROIs. Now, if that SOP won't show an ROI, even in a budget before you plan it, then you've got to rethink this thing a little bit. You can still play with it, but you know, I've seen some pretty severe situations where people went all in and they didn't really have a good market. And a couple of years in, you know, they've spent a lot of money, and it's not benefited them very well, or their family operation. So you really got to take time to figure that SOP, ROI, where you're going, know what you're using in that soil, what kind of soil you have. So I'm done talking, and I'll answer any questions you have.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully we can maybe follow up, but I know we need to wrap up because of time. But thank you so much again, and to all of our panelists.
Thank you, Kelly. I think you're done. Yeah, okay. There's a little bit of a lag. Thank you to all the producers that participated in the producer panel. I really appreciate everybody's perspective. We're going to jump right over to Cecil Horowitz with the hemp carbon standard. There is a couple slides in between here and there, Mindy. The hempitecture slide, I just wanted to highlight some ready-made products that are on the market today. If you're not a farmer, or you're not a person that otherwise wants to be invested in agricultural hemp, there are lots of ways that you can shop hemp today. There's hemp wood flooring, there's hemp erosion control blankets, there's this hempitecture wool, hemp wool for insulation. They also make a fiber panel that goes under carpet. It's a really good product. So shop hemp whenever you get the chance. And then the next slide we can skip past quickly, but it just is showing a lot of grants that have recently been announced for hemp. And the one at the very bottom is the Climate Smart Commodity Grant, and that is the Lincoln University grant that Bill mentioned several times. That is Midwest Hemp is the grain processor assigned for that grant. And so if you are interested in participating in that in any way, you can definitely reach out to me at Midwest Hemp Technology, and we can talk more about that. But beyond that, I think those numbers just really do show the federal government's commitment to advancing the crop and the applications that it has. And if you will send out the recording, so maybe take a minute to look those grants up. And Hempitecture, the company I just mentioned, got $8.4 million this year to develop a facility in Eastern Tennessee. So pretty cool stuff going on generally. Next, I want to introduce Cecil Horowitz, like I mentioned. Cecil is the Chief Commercial Officer at Hemp Alta, based in Alberta, Canada. Hemp Alta is a well-established and pioneering hemp processor committed to advancing a green future through cutting-edge sustainable solutions. Cecil leads efforts to drive sustainable agriculture and unlock the potential of carbon markets. With a strong belief in the power of sustainable agriculture strategy, Cecil builds relationships as the foundation for value creation. His role bridges strategy, execution, and relationship building to ensure the advancement of hemp crops and hemp credits for hemp producers, carbon credits for hemp producers. Cecil, thank you so much for being here. I know you're traveling today, but thanks for making time to speak with us today. I think you should be able to share your screen. But what I really hope you can share with us today, you have a 20-year head start on the United States and Canada. And so if you could just paint a picture for us of what the United States hemp market, how you see it coming together in the next decade, and how you are sure that hemp carbon credits and hemp biochar are going to play a role. We do have a poll real quick. So everybody that's watching is an attendee. You should get the chance to vote in the poll. And the question is about whether you are familiar with Amendment 336 from the NRCS, and whether you know about that amendment and the fact that it will offset the cost of infield biochar applications. So we will talk a little bit about that in Cecil's presentation, and we just wanted to gauge off the bat if that was something that you're familiar with. So yes or no, I'm familiar with NRCS's Amendment 336. And with that, we'll let you vote, and we'll turn it over to Cecil, and we will wrap up today's presentations.
Sarah, thanks, and thanks everybody. I know it's been a long day, and I'm actually a pretty long-winded guy, so I will do my best to keep it short and sweet. I think that I'll bring out my presentation here, but what I will say in regards to what Sarah has pointed out already is that Alberta, has been on a hemp journey for 26 years. So we do have a huge head start. And in regard to our head start, I really like a few things that some of the speakers have said regarding working together to push this forward together. ROI. We've been processing hemp. Let me just backtrack for a little bit. I come from a long line of farmers, none of them hemp farmers, by the way. But since the 1800s, Canada offered, Europeans to come here and take very hard to work land. And my great grandfather and grandfather and dad did all of that and recorded their daily experiences since the mid 1800s or the early 1800s. So I think that farming's important. I think the environment's important. What we're doing for the earth is important. So I really connected a lot with what everyone has said here. I'm trying to figure out my display at the same time, but I think I'll maybe just leave it like this. Everyone can see here. So as Sarah said, we've been processing hemp for quite a few years. Alberta has legalized hemp 26 years ago. Alberta has, as of last year, about 20,000 acres of hemp being grown. To answer some of Sarah's questions, what I see is one of the reasons why I love working with Midwest Tech Hemp and Kansas farmers. Bill's one of our farmers under contract too as well. Is that you guys all really seem to work together as opposed to working out of fear of what each other is doing and the competitive nature of business. I think to move hemp forward, you really do need to work together. You do need to share information. And I think that the other thing that really resonated with me, again, as a hemp processing business, and now as a pioneering, like what Bill said, we're all pioneering. We have now pioneered a business called Hemp Carbon Standard that really, generates carbon credit value in dollars to farmers because hemp sequesters more carbon than any plant virtually on Earth in a very short period of time. So last year, I'd say that mid this year was the first time we have hemp farmers have ever been paid out for sequestering carbon, to my knowledge. So, and we're a very niche sort of boutique standard that deals with really end-to-end solutions for high integrity carbon credits. So I would say that, what Melissa said regarding ROI as hemp processors and knowing how difficult it is and knowing how difficult it is to create markets, how can you take one plant and find several, ways to provide that ROI to the farmer outside of, the science that we know hemp provides for soil and, water, et cetera. So we're really committed. We want to enhance the agricultural landscape. And this is a really great way that we've been able to do this, is by creating a business that provides another ROI to a farmer at absolutely no cost to them whatsoever. So this is about ROI to the farmer. This is about all the things that you people have all said, but this is also about what we can do for sustainability and to help the environment and help offset emissions goals too, which is something hemp does extremely effectively. So we really do have those sort of three objectives, like enhancing farmer profitability, promoting environmental stewardship, and then creating long-term impact in terms of climate goals and those with stakeholders that are involved in the hemp business. I think that the other important thing really is to know that as in addition to processing hemp, we're also scaling up hemp biochar production and facility. So with a crawl, walk, run method. And that's because hemp biochar has long durability and permanence in terms of storing carbon, and then putting that biochar back on a farmer's field, you know, with the right inoculant attached to it, cannot be understated in terms of the efficacy regarding, you know, less fertilizer use, less water use, you know, microbials, all of these things. And the USDA pays out 70 to 80%, if I'm accurate, of that biochar that's going onto your field. And I think that the difference between the 70 or 80%, they take the average between, like, if you're using fertilizer versus regenerative ag, and they sort of like go from the low end to the high end and then come up with the average. So we're really addressing a climate change problem, and we're adding an ROI to farmers' fields. I don't think I need to go through all the, you know, CO2 emissions and the Paris Climate Agreement and stuff like that. I think, like, if anyone's really interested in you know, diving deep into the environmental and climate aspects and the climate role, the role that hemp plays in climate change and carbon sequestration, then they can contact me, you know, directly. Oh, that's interesting. This poll is no. So yes, in fact, the USDA does provide a 70 to 80% rebate when you apply biochar back on your fields. And as John said, and as Bill said, you know, they've seen the difference to soil and how soils come back from hemp. But biochar can do that in a shorter period of time too. So the voluntary carbon markets. So based on what Bill said too, as well, this is pioneering work that we're doing. There's a voluntary carbon market or big business that have a lot of emissions, need to offset their emissions. They can't do enough work in their own businesses to offset emissions, so they need to purchase credits and projects that are also capturing carbon. And nature-based solutions are very popular right now in terms of voluntary carbon markets. You know, I meet with Google and Microsoft, and these big businesses work with local businesses too, as well, that are interested in going fully circular. So here's a great example of what happens in Manitoba. There's a processing facility in Manitoba called Manitoba Harvest. One of the largest cannabis companies called Tilray. We have Manitoba Harvest's farmers under contract for us. They grow their hemp, sell their seed back to Manitoba Harvest. We measure their sequestration rates. We create credit value, and then the parent company, you know, offsets their emissions by buying back their farmers' sequestration rates, and the money goes back to the farmer. The processor gets some money, and of course we take a percentage too as well. So it's really a trading mechanism that allows us to compensate a farmer and a processor with quite a high dollar value that ranges between $35 per ton of CO2 sequestered if it's regen ag practices in our program, or $100 to $120 per ton of CO2 sequestered if it's a biochar program upgrade. And so those are really the two. We have 5 methodologies, but those are the 2 main methodologies that we've started with and worked with. And this voluntary carbon markets are really starting to be mandated by the governments around the world right now with the Paris Climate Accords. And one thing that strikes me really sort of familiar is just some of the challenges that, you know, Kansas is having, or Missouri is having, or, you know, the areas that you all work in are very similar to what Alberta has gone through. And 26 years later, for many reasons, still does go through. So there are a lot of lessons to be learned from each other, and that's something that, you know, I'm happy to connect with anybody on too as well. So this is what we do: is we address the carbon markets, right? We have nature-based solutions, tons of publicly traded companies. You know, this is what they have to get to net zero by 2030. And the way to do it is by buying offsets versus reducing their own emissions. So this is where hemp comes in. So hemp really, on average, so in 2023, we started We're calculating our numbers for 2024, but on average, hemp sequesters 4 tons of CO2 per acre. We've had some farms that sequester 10 tons per acre, and that's typically related back to the landowner, the soil conditions, how old that land is. So there are some hemp farms that do sequester higher rates, but on average, it's about 4 tons per acre. And of course, you can grow in 3 months, 4 months. Some climates can get 2 seasons in North America. We deal all over the world, Africa, Australia, Spain, Portugal, etc. So it's important to know that hemp absorbs, at least 4 to 10 times more than any tree can ever absorb. This is part of the work that you're all doing already, is mitigating climate change just by growing hemp. And of course, if you burn the hemp afterwards, it just releases the CO2 back into the air. So there's things that need to be done with the hemp necessarily, but we measure the net ecosystem exchange between the exchange of carbon that is in the air and that gets sucked into the plant and into the root system. So this is really based on also the regenerative properties and how regenerative your practices are is very important in our program too as well. Okay, so let's see here. So we develop and implement a proprietary technology. So the technology we use to measure is the same technology that like Nestle, as a big ag company, a big food company, has moved now totally to the same system and program that we use, Carbon Space, that deploys satellites, flux towers, all these things that already exist, and AI that have a hugely accurate way of measuring the net ecosystem exchange of carbon in the air. Of course, we do soil measurements too as well. And these have to be high quality. You have to have a lot of permanence and durability, and you have to have science-based processes for all of these projects to be sold. Out of all the acreages, which I'll go through in just a second here, that we have around the world, and the amount of CO2 we've captured, we have about 2,000 acres under contract in the US. 800 of that is under SARA. So this is just another testament to the work that Midwest Tech Hemp does and Kansas does to move forward. I'm going to go through the technologies there to move the hemp industry forward here. So these are really our methodologies: regenerative agriculture methodology, biochar carbon storage methodology, hemp building material methodology. We don't, as we're pioneering this, we do have a bio oil and a biomass burial methodology, but again, it's really the first 2 or 3, including building materials, that we're working with right now as we move through this pioneering work and paying our farmers. So this is a little bit of a timeline of what it looks like and how it works. So again, permanence and durability of credits are really, really important. You have to align with sustainable development goals. And you have to be precise in the way that you quantify, measure, and the benefits of biodiversity. So we contract a farmer. The contracts are 10 years for our program because any buyer of carbon credits wants longevity for these. There's no cost. Like, a farmer does not, or processor does not have to pay for this. So as it's pioneering work, I'm always very transparent, like, sign up and see. So the money that we've paid out already has been specifically like buyers that say, I want to buy these projects. Over the last year and a half, we've really learned now how to sell them en masse and sell all of our projects at one time versus finding buyers that say, I only want these 2 projects or these 3 projects. So then we measure, report, and verify the carbon credits. The transportation, as Bill said, we're in Calgary, Alberta. We, as a processor, we work mostly with Southern Alberta farmers because we don't want the, emissions of transporting, our hemp all over the place or our biochar all over the place. So that's really crucial as well. Of course, then, you want the hemp converted into some sort of fast fiber herd biomass or biochar. I think biochar is all the billions of dollars of carbon credits sold last year. 81 to 91% of those were biochar credits. very important, not only in your ROI and us selling these projects to our buyers, but also in terms of what you can do for your soil across your fields and more traditional fields. And then, of course, there's the manufacturing stream. The more permanent and durable the end product is, the higher the value it is on the carbon markets. So, these are things that we need to track and trace, right? So if it goes into a straw, that straw may end up in a landfill and we can't track and trace that. So that really doesn't have permanence or durability. But if it goes into a building or 10 buildings, we can track or trace that. It has longevity, it has permanence and durability. Then, of course, we sell the carbon credits to global companies. We try to work local, like if we have Kansas farms, Missouri farms, Pennsylvania farms, we want to find companies that are local that want to offset and go circular. And then, of course, we pay farmers a portion, and then we also pay the processor a portion. There's also an insurance portion that gets held back for a few years, and then we take a portion of that too as well. So in 2023, this was our inaugural year, all right? These numbers are really important. We sequestered about 15,325 tons of CO2 over 15 farms, 45 sites with 3,400 acres across Canada, US, Ukraine, and Spain. All right. So, this is actually a very large amount of CO2 to sequester, especially if you compare it to like direct air capture and the cost of those types of things. And then in our, so this is representative of, one-way trip to New York and Paris is 15,325 trips of carbon sequestration. So these are just some little, but to take a look at, and this is something I'm happy to share with anybody too at any time, and go over this with anybody. But this is really the most important thing here. So that was 15,000 tons. This year, we don't finish our measurements until December, the end of December. And we, can share with our farm. Sarah and I were going over this online the other day and looking at farms. We were looking at Bill's farm, what he was sequestering up until August, etc. So this year we've gone from, very few farms to 36 farms, 184 sites, 13,000 plus acres, 2,000 of those out of the US, 800 of those out of Kansas and Missouri, to sequester 52,000 tons of carbon, which is really an enormous amount of carbon to sequester purely out of hemp. And you can see on our map where we have our locations and our farms, which is growing by the day. Like hemp farmers around the world are signing up like mad here. So this is really incentivizing farmers financially. It's like you're already doing it, you're already growing it, you have multiple avenues for ROI with one plan. Here's another avenue. We never can guarantee we're going to sell a project, but we work really hard to hit all of the buyers around the world and meet with them. It is a difficult job. It's not easy what we do, and getting in front of Google and Microsoft and local buyers. It's not easy at all. But there's about a 30% potential income increase for a farmer, so that offsets their costs quite dramatically. And then when you put biochar back on your field, you're also saving even more in terms of increased yield, decreased fertilizer if you're using it, decreased water usage, etc. So that supplemental income is about $145 per acre. And then our commitment goals, I won't go over those. Again, there's a reason to choose us. We're the only hemp players on the carbon markets currently, and we're pioneering it. And there are other big registries that we're dealing with and talking with that are going to adapt and adopt to what we do, although we also have our own registry. But we're way ahead of the system. So again, this is about the exchange of carbon and the sequestration growing. The hemp grows sequester, and it goes into the biomass roots and soil. So of course that mitigates greenhouse gas emissions. We're ISO standardized. Like this is all on the up and up. You have to be ISO certified to be able to have these methodologies. And we have an amazing team. So we've got a great CEO, a great CFO. You know, there's nobody that knows this business more than Brittany. She's our general manager, and also like partnerships and our agriculture partners, and then our head of marketing too as well. And Candace, our CFO. So, you know, here's the email, or cecil.horwitz@hempelta.com. Please don't hesitate to ask me any questions or reach out. Yeah, I know that I feel like I went a little fast, but I wanted to make sure I got it all in. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer. Frank, I don't think your speakers.
Thank you, Cecil. Looks like we have gotten to the end of our conference. We're so thankful for you bringing such a visual of what a reality can be in the hemp space. I believe that was a great way to top what we started from the beginning, talking about grain, feed, you know, polymers, the use of fiber. Then we went into some of the minutia, which reminds me to remember or remind you as well that the USDA hemp producers license will open on January 1st. So if there's some of you newbies out there that are interested in getting this information, come over and talk to us. This has been a great conference, and I think Cecil has provided us with a vision of how the hemp space can be not only sustainable and financially rewarding, but also environmentally sound, creating this type of results, this type of solutions. And I think we're excited to hear that, and look forward to maybe following up and duplicating what Cecil and his group has been able to do. I want to extend our thanks to folks that collaborated with us today. Please bear with me while I thank some of these folks individually. And also want to let you know that the whole webinar has been recorded and will be available soon at the Pittsburgh State University SBDC YouTube channel. And we can email you links to this in the days to come. We want to definitely take the time to thank many of the panelists and some of the folks that helped make this conference possible. Andrew from the Hemp Feed Coalition and the Hemp Harvest Works, Dr. Tim Dossie with NEMA at Pittsburgh State University, our KDA Deputy Secretary, Josh McGinn, USDA Domestic Hemp Program leaders, Vicky Feather and Graham Davis, Kelly Ripple, of course, always with Kansas for Hemp, and the producers panel, John McKee, Melissa Nelson, and South Bend Industrial Hemp, and Bill Cook with Native Prairie Hemp. Of course, Cecil Horwitz, thank you. We want to thank the Pittsburgh State University SBDC, and especially Mindy Lee, who was able to help us put this virtual conference together. Sarah, of course, with Midwest Hemp and Hemp Technology. Keep an eye out for a survey that you will receive, and please help us complete it, because that will also in turn help us get some of the information and the feedback that we need from you out there. Feel free to reach to the Kansas Hemp Consortium with questions, especially if you want to become a producer, a processor of some type. We're here to provide the information. Kansas farmers that are visiting and wanting to learn something, please reach out to us if you're interested in participating in the growth of or processing of hemp in the state of Kansas. And with that, we say thank you and wish you a great weekend and Merry Christmas and New Year.